Okay, everybody, this is my name's Anthony, and I'm going to be talking about my struggle with depression, anxiety, and the past, and how I've uh, moved forward from this. And when you go through these kind of things in your life, it is never easy. It is never easy. And we go through these different times in our life, and we often wonder why. Why do we have to go through it? And, there really is no good answer to that. You hear a lot of different things from people over the years. I've heard all kinds of things from, life is not fair to it is now your turn, right? So I came up with the idea for this podcast is my struggling with depression and pain. And why do I choose it like that? The reason I choose my struggling with depression and pain because that is what has happened my whole life. And I didn't really think about it. I didn't think about depression and anxiety and all of these things like a mental health issue, although they are. That is how much it is stigmatized and how much people don't want to admit it. And even my own self don't want to admit it. And became a nurse later on, in my 50s. And, you know, and still then, I didn't think I guess over the years, I never really thought about it. I mean, I know people have mental health issues, and I just thought it's very compartmentalized. And I think what happens for people is they don't want to be they don't want to be held in to think that they're ill of something or they've got some kind of messed up uh, emotional thinking or brain thinking. Um, but my path was struggling with depression and pain is really what it's about. And that's what I found that's been my whole life basically in a nutshell. And I started to realize that even from when I was born, I started to think about a few things. You know, when I was born, I I actually um, was born with the cord wrapped around my neck. My mother tells me, and that's the big story. So and we all know if the cord is wrapped around your neck, blood is not getting through, and there could be some things happening to your brain, right? I mean, maybe it's momentarily or whatever. They do get oxygen. They figure out a way to, they slap you on the ass and, get your body moving and circulation. Although I don't know if they do it that much anymore, but that's what they did in those days. And, you know, I'm still here, but I have to tell you, I've gone through a lot of healing on that. And I have received some cranial sacral therapy over the years. And I remember being at a conference in Jamaica and going through that and actually feeling some of the same feelings um, I'm assuming that I had as a baby going through that. It was like I was being rebirthed or something. And, like some of this stuff is really wild. Um, and I'll be explaining some of it through my podcast because I'm going to talk about the um, the emotional roller coaster, the ups and downs, the path that took me to where I'm at right now, actually. And like I say, it's a lot of struggles, a lot of challenge, a lot of detours, a lot of dead ends, and but still, I'm here, right? So let's dive into the vibrant tapestry of um, of life, love, and this pursuit of self-discovery. So I'm your host, bringing you stories from the heart of a big, loud, incredibly loving Italian family, um, all the way to finding my calling across the realms of retail, healing, and nursing. I think that's a good way to put this. So as I say, I looked at this notebook today, and I opened it up, and I started to look at this, and I was like, oh my God, it was from 1988 or 1989, 4/7/89. Today is 4/6/24. It's like 35 years. And I'm like, holy crap, this is a long time. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, so you can see that it's been a bit of a shock to read this and to look at some of this, but I wanted to start out with my family and talk about how the beginnings of life start. And for me, they started in in a hospital with a cord wrapped around my neck. And as I say, this is a time for when um, family come together and do all these things. And of course, growing up in this family, um, love wasn't just an emotion; it was a language. Every gesture, every loud dinner, um, every handshake, hug. It was the chapter of love story written in our family's heart, basically. And just as Italians are, this upbringing of respect for each other and the family, it was very much carried on. And you had to, do this with your aunts, uncles, cousins, and I don't see it as a bad thing now. Some of them were more difficult to deal with than others. When you have 8 aunts and uncles to deal with, there's going to be some issues, right? It was a very large family, and my father died just a few years ago from COVID, so he almost made it to 100. So it's kind of amazing, his story too. Um, but I'm not talking about him right now. I'm talking about how how I got to now. And how I got to now was going to school, growing up in a neighborhood, suburb of Chicago, basically. And the suburb was actually called Bellwood. And it's still there and near Melrose Park. I was also raised grew up in a house in Melrose Park and Bellwood, and eventually Schaumburg, Illinois. Um, but what I see is, you know, the struggles of being in an Italian family where denial runs the roost. And my mother was pretty much running the roost also. And you know, she loved to cook and she loved to eat. And And I say that with passion because she made the best freaking cookies in the world, and the best filled Italian cuccidata cookies, and something called little birds that they tie in a knot, and pizzelles, these flat wafer cookies that even when we still make them in our house here, and every time I make them, every time we make them, it smells up the house with the anise, the beautiful aroma of anise. And that's for me home. You know, my mother and father are both gone. Most of my, um, there's a few, I think I have one aunt left actually, and an uncle out of 8. So a lot of them are no longer on the earth, and bless their hearts. My father's name was Mario. And my father was around not a lot in growing up because, like I said, we grew up in a family. We didn't have a lot of money. My father worked on a truck. He drove a truck, and also he did odd jobs and things like that, like painting for people, and did all kinds of interesting things like that to make extra money. You know, so that is how it all started for me. And so not having him not be around a lot. And I also remember, you know, and being as a child, I remember finding my way, um, or sometimes even finding myself alone. I had an older brother, 4 years older than me, but sometimes he was nowhere to be found. Even when I was like, I think I was about 6, and so that means he was 10, and God only knows where he was. But it was, I think we were supposed to be in school or go to school. Anyway, I was sitting there at home, and it was lunchtime, and watching TV, and my mother, I guess, needed some stuff at the store, so she was going off to the store, left me sitting on the sofa watching TV. My brother is not even there, and I'm like sitting there alone, and you know, I think that was probably one of the first times I kind of like uh I felt like I kind of came out of my body, disassociated or something, and went into the TV. I always think of that when I see that Poltergeist movie and Carol Ann goes into the TV. Remember that? Anyway, um, but I kind of felt like that, like I was just staring at the TV. I wasn't watching TV. I was in the TV. That's how I felt. And my mother comes back and she's like, just she comes up to me and she kind of wiggles my knee and says, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And like, because she just sees me staring at the TV, like in a daze. And I think that was probably some of the first anxiety and abandonment pains that I've ever felt. And you know, we don't really talk about this stuff. I remember talking about it with my mom though, and several times in therapy with counselors and different things like that. But so yes, it was a very tumultuous childhood. There was always a lot of food. Um, it seems like there was, never a lack of food, although money was tight. It was not always as much as it could be or plentiful in big amounts, but there was enough. And, you know, they did the best they could. And at one point, my mother started working when we were all in school. And so she did do her part and try to help out. And, but, it's all very well and good. But here is where the problems come in, is when you have a mother that is gets easily depressed and is always crying and lays on the bed crying and you know having all these temper tantrums and and as a 5 or 6 year old, I'm watching my mom thinking, what the hell is wrong? And I remember trying to help her and saying, are you okay? Is there some, did we do something wrong? What did we do? What did we do? Why are you crying because we haven't been good? Or I'm just, like, because we'll be better. We'll be better. Like I'm always, caregiving and taking care of everybody. And from that age, it occurred to me that that stuff was going on. And it's quite fascinating when I realize what I was doing and when other people hear it, they're also fascinated. Um, so yeah, my mother and father grew up, you know, I think about both of them only made it to like their second year of high school before they started having to work because there wasn't a lot of money. And they both came from families of immigrants. My grandmother on my father's side, um, mother and father were from Italy, a place called Prato la Paligna in the region of Abruzzo. And my mother's family came from Calabria and Sicily. So I have quite a mix of Italiano in me. Um, so it's been an interesting experience. And like I said, my father had issues coming back from military. I think that there was a lot of trauma, PTSD, shell shock. I'm not sure what other things to call it, the things that they called it back then. And I worked at the VA also as a nurse. So I've seen a lot of different pathologies come in and out of treatment rooms. And I'm assuming, he must have been, he had some pretty terrific things go on. And but you see, here's what happened is that carried into our childhood. And my father would get very upset very easily. Outbursts would be happening. It was never really and there wasn't a whole lot of calm moments, because between my mother screaming about, turning down a radio or yelling at my brother or yelling at me or, you know, doing something and creating some havoc. Um, and of course, when my mother yelled, my father would click into action and he would be the first up with a belt or something to come and, slap the crap out of you with, with a belt or a paddle or something. Sometimes even just grabbing you by the arms. So there was a lot of that type of thing that happened. Um, like I said, I had an older brother. I had a younger brother who was 2 years younger than me, Frank, and Mario's my older brother. Frank is no longer here. And I do have a sister who is 4 years younger than me. So I'm, kind of in the middle here, still on Earth. And it's been quite a few years. And so that's where my healing journey starts. And as a child in school, I just remember dealing with the anxiety and dealing with a lot of emotional pain. And but here's the thing: I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know um, these feelings that I was having, what they were, why I was having them. Um, and who's there to tell you that? I mean, nobody. So you learn as you go through this stuff. And I understand now, you know, um, that my personality is one of um, a highly sensitive person. That was another thing my mother said. I used to scream and cry as a kid, like as a baby, and she couldn't calm me down. And so she would ask the doctor what to do. And a lot of times he told her, like, you can't just keep picking him up every time. You got to let him, cry it out. And I mean, that was the teaching back then. I'm not sure, um, if it was good, bad, or whatever. But eventually, you come out of that. But see, like, I don't know if that was something um, that I got affected by. I mean, and the other thing about it is also that you're going to get something. I don't think anybody's going to grow up in a home with a perfect family. Um, because the other part of this is, you know, and I grew up in a family of people that ate a lot and drank a lot. And I never really noticed or thought about the drinking part. Why? Because I never associated it with disease, just never did. And although some of my uncles would get very drunk at parties and things like that, even my grandmother, I think she could actually drink my father and his brothers under the table. She was from Pratala, Abruzzo region, made of good stock, and she was something else. And also my mother's mother and father. So I'm going to leave it right there because you know I could go on and on, but when I look back at the story and setting this up, I see there is a lot of information that starts to come out as I talk about this, and a lot more than what I'm thinking about. But I think it's good. I'm enjoying doing this, and I hope that you're enjoying listening to it. Um, and for me, this is a healing journey. It's the roots of my passion, the healing, and moving through this has been a real big part of my life. So, um, and I'm kind of coming full circle, and I'll explain in the next few podcasts because it really is too much to go into. But if you've looked at any of my podcasts or videos or stories, you'll see some of the depression, anxiety treatment that I've had and how I've dealt with it over the years. So I want to just thank you for listening. And if you like what you hear, or think someone else might um, get benefit out of it, please let them know. And I'm also considering having a support group um, for depression, or a Facebook page. So I'm interested in hearing from people if that might be something they're interested in for depression and anxiety, because what I realize is that it's an ongoing issue. And, you know, as a nurse, I thought it would go away or get better. Or maybe you just get better at dealing with it, I thought, but that's not the case at all. And so that's where I'm at. And I'm going to talk more about that too. But I want to just leave this now. And thanks for listening. And we'll talk again soon. And I can't wait to come back and start with the next episode. Bye bye. Have a great day.